Now, I'm going to share with you 3 key concepts that you should be aware at the very beginning of this journey to maximize your probability of approval. Because doing everything right, the right way, properly, step by step from beginning to end will result in that very high probability of visa approval based on my decades of experience. 3 key concepts that I want you all to be aware of and think about in your planning process for the E2 visa journey. Number 1 is, what is the right investment amount for your investment, for your business venture? Number 2 is, what is the qualifying source of your investment money? That will be scrutinized, that will need to be verified. Number 3 is, what is the right business for your investment, given your investment budget? So we'll talk about what is the right investment amount. Well, with the E2 visa, that's a little bit ambiguous because the law doesn't say how much. So that means a smaller investment could potentially qualify. In my 2 decades of experience, I've actually got an approval for $35,000 investment for E2 visa case. But the reality is that's not a good idea. Where the investment falls below 100,000, immigration officer can naturally be more skeptical about the viability of the business. As a result, for a strong case, for a good presentation, I typically recommend at least $100,000 investment budget. It's easier for immigration to believe in the potential success where the investment is at least 6 figures. So we're going for high probability success here. Higher the investment amount, of course, the stronger your case becomes. Ideally, $150,000 or more is my recommended investment budget. Now, equally important is demonstrating the qualifying source of your investment money. U.S. immigration is not going to be happy with the case, even if the business is great, even if the investment amount is great, but they're not happy with the origin of the money. So you need to think about the source of your money from the beginning, how you're going to demonstrate the source, qualifying source to the immigration officials, and do you have the documentation to satisfy immigration officials? 2 things that U.S. immigration cares about in scrutinizing, examining the source of funds is, number 1, how did an applicant lawfully acquire the money? Number 2 is the trail of the money completely traceable from the lawful origin all the way to the applicant's possession and then to the U.S. business? Now, source of money can come from a variety of qualifying sources, including personal savings from employment or business income. A lot of people sell their houses or assets to fund their investment. Some people get a loan or gift from family members. That could all potentially qualify with conditions, such as, for example, if you get a loan, personal loan from friend or family or a gift, you also have to demonstrate the donor or the lender's financial ability and qualifying source. So if that's going to be a source of funds, for example, one of the first things we need to ascertain is making sure the donor or the lender has the documentation to prove his or her lawful source of fund and also consents to sharing with us those financial evidence so we can present it to immigration that the origin of money is lawful. So that's an example of the type of things that we need to think about in the beginning to ensure that by the time you go down this path and you reach the point where you're ready to invest the money, we've already done our financial due diligence to feel confident that the money you're going to be using is going to satisfy immigration. Last thing you want to do is find out at that point in time that the money is risky or not satisfactory, and you have to start all over at raising new funding. Last thing I want you to think about is the right business model. Now, U.S. immigration, they're looking at a business model that will create jobs, that will make an impact on the U.S. economy, and a credible business model that has a reasonable probability of success. So there are people that invest and start up their own independent business. There are people that buy franchise businesses. And the foundational commonality is the business credible and successful? Now, if you have a lot of business experience in a particular industry in your home country, and you plan on doing replicating the same business in the United States, then an independent startup could be a viable option for you. But if you are going into a new industry, or you are new to entrepreneurship and you don't have the kind of entrepreneurial background track record to show immigration, then it behooves you to seriously consider franchise investment, because you can compensate for that lack of business qualification background with a franchise brand recognition and brand credibility, and a brand and business model that by its nature will create jobs. And these are important because immigration officer is looking at these factors in deciding whether or not to take that leap of faith and trust in the potential success. So they're looking at objective credibility factors, such as the success of the franchise brand. How long they've been around? Are their franchisees doing well? Clause 19 in the franchise disclosure documents could present successful, strong, average financial performance of franchisee. That's an example of a credibility booster that will give you a higher probability E2 visa approval. So these are the three common factors. There's a lot more to think about, but as a starting point in the beginning of the E2 visa journey, I'd like the audience to think about these three key factors. Number one is, what is the investment amount that is necessary for the type of business I want to invest in? And typical recommendation is that you should have at least $100,000 investment amount for a good E2 presentation. Number two is, what is the source of my investment money? And do I have clear documentation and evidence to prove and satisfy immigration on the lawful origin and the trail of the money? And sometimes it is necessary or very, very beneficial to consult an expert immigration lawyer in the E2 visa field to guide you on raising the investment funds from qualifying source. You may have a variety of sources to choose from, but there are sources that are going to be easier for you to prove. So it's important to know that in advance, what are the sources that are the easier for you to satisfy immigration, and make that determination in advance. And lastly, the type of business to choose for your E2 investment, whether it is your own startup because you have significant success track record in that industry, or you're a new entrepreneur, or you go into a new industry where a franchise investment with a strong established brand makes the most sense for your E2 investment. All right, well, that summarizes my introduction of the E2 visa requirement. Thank you very much.